Welcome back to Rick and Elaine Discuss the Bible, and in particular, the book of Job.
Yep,
What's
excellent.
what's going on, Elaine Ray Clark?
I thought you was going to say, "What's new, pussycat?" Whoa,
What's
whoa,
new,
whoa!
Pussycat? What that was a Broadway thing, wasn't it?
It's Tom Jones, wasn't it? What's new, pussycat?
Oh, it was Tom Jones. That's
Yeah,
right.
exactly. Mr. Hips himself.
He was.
Exactly. Well,
What's
it's
new?
a
What's new, Pussycat?
what's new, pussycat? Well, what's new is Tomcat. Is that at the end of the day, it's very dark, dank, dismal, drab, dreary, dull here again. It's been pouring with rain all night, with about 22 millimeters of rain, and everybody's wondering what's going on.
Well, we had been in a drought for the longest time here, and we finally got some rain. So I'm very thankful for that. It rained during my daughter's wedding. And what was really interesting was that, I figured that Annabelle, my daughter, would have been a little upset, but instead she just powered through,
Rejoice.
and she was more interested in marrying the love of her
Oh,
life, than she was
absolutely,
rain. And
absolutely.
the young man was all about holding the umbrella for her and opening the door and
Oh,
picking up her dress so it wouldn't get in the mud puddle. Like, I was so impressed with these kids. I was like, this is good. This is good. You two have figured it out. You love one another, and that's what matters the most. So that's
that's all that matters, Rick. That's it. I mean, all the external paraphernalia and all that type of thing, really, as much as it's lovely and it's good to celebrate and to see something different, it's really what's going on inside the two people. And that's what you're there to observe, isn't it?
it is, and it's really funny because there's a lot of emotions going on. Annabelle's not the youngest. She's second to the youngest. The youngest, Sarah
Okay.
Beth, is graduating this month here in about 10 days. And she graduates, and she is going to be an emergency medical technician, or what we call EMT, a person that rides around in an ambulance and goes
Oh,
around.
we call them paramedics.
Paramedics also, yeah.
Oh,
And
right. Okay.
she's already finished all of her classes. She's already passed everything. So as soon as she
Good for
graduates,
her.
yeah, she's going in a county, Rutherford County. She's going to be down there. I think. I can't remember. She told me it was a toss up, but it hasn't been decided yet. She's focusing on graduation right now. But Annabelle, being, the age that she is, and watching her get married,
How
there's
old is
this
she, Rick?
she is 20. She actually,
Wow.
let's see, no, I'm sorry. She'll be 20 May 25th. So she got married at 19. And
My gosh, that is quite young, isn't it?
I got married at 20. I mean, around here, that's, you don't want to wait too long, because the good ones will get away. It goes quick around here.
Yeah, well, yeah, yeah, like, yeah, I get that. Yeah, yeah.
But anyway,
I don't know whether I go with that completely, but I get it. I
but
get it.
alas, you realize, as I got older, as I'm older, I'm 50 now, and I'm watching this unfold before my
Oh,
eyes.
you're a young buck,
I'm
Rick.
a young buck. I'm a young buck.
You're a
So
young buck.
yeah, not quite so young. But I would just, it's amazing when you're in events. Like, I've been to weddings when I was in my 20s and in my 30s and 40s. It's amazing how you get older when you look at it, the way
Yes.
that you look at it differently with wisdom. And a lot of that comes with time and effort. And it kind of does tie into this study of Job, because the Job 28 wisdom that we were talking about is something that only can be revealed from above. It only comes from God. It's not something that you learn or you mine or you work. And so
But it's
uh,
like you said, really, is experience. You know, what you
experience is part of
experience,
it.
it's teaching. What is it teaching you? What are you learning?
Well, and that's the other side of it, is that, I realize that, I have these built-in worldviews of my very own that I think about in life. And so here we are, I'm watching my daughter get married, and I'm thinking about all of the things she did as a little kid. And I remember, we had a hard time teaching her how to tie her shoes. We had a hard time teaching her how to ride a bike. We had a hard time getting her to ride in the car without beating her head on the seat and getting angry because she didn't like the feeling of a
The
seat
car
belt.
moving.
Just all of it, just going back and remembering all of the things about her and what made her unique.
But
And
isn't it funny though? Really, when you're going through something, you don't really appreciate the fact that one day you'll look back on those times with fondness. You know, we put a great deal of stock on. Oh, she's irritated by the seatbelt. Oh, no. And yet you look back and you just think, wow, she was irritated by the seatbelt. It was quite amusing, really, or she was had a hard time. But you always seem to. It's like God takes away the bad and just leaves the good.
Yeah, and
The joy.
that's a great way of putting it. Yeah, for me, like when you're in the experience as a young person, you're not thinking 30 years from now I'm going to look back at this and think of it this way. You're not
And
thinking, you're thinking about it.
you'd give anything to see her for one day in the back of that car complaining about the seatbelt or not being able to ride her bike or doing all those things, the things that you thought, I can't wait till she gets older and I won't have to worry about that. They're the very things that you think, wish I could go back with my children. They drove me nuts.
Yeah, of
And yet I
course.
would give
Mine
anything,
too.
Rick, to go
Yeah.
back. I would.
Just keep in mind I have seven.
Yeah, you're greedy.
I had to get them all. But with that being said, as I was sitting there thinking about it, I looked over at her grandfather and I thought, I wonder what's in his mind right now. And I wonder
Yeah.
what he's thinking about me. And I wonder what, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's just this way that it goes. And then I thought, you know, when we're talking about the book of Job, a lot of times when we read these things, we this study's been unique because we really try to dig in and get the humanity side of it. But at the same time, I started thinking, you know, like Eliphaz the Temanite had a wife and had children, most likely, and it doesn't say, but most likely he did. That was their society in the patriarchy. Job
Yeah,
obviously had a
yeah.
wife and children. And to think about what Job's mind is doing because he lost all of his children. And I don't, it's like,
And the support of his wife.
and the support of his wife, and he lost everything that he had. And I'm just trying to sit with that. I'm like, let's really get in here and let's really sit with him because we're going to get into that today. We're going to get into Job 29, 30, and 31. We're actually going to finish if we can. If we have to go over a little bit, we will because you know, we slowed down a lot in Job's discourses, and now I think we can wrap it up pretty nicely in these last chapters. So, Elaine, you're going to be reading a lot today. I hope you don't
Oh
mind.
dear.
But we're just going to sit with the words that Job leaves us. Let me go to the comments first from the last episode on Job 28. We had one comment. Everybody was busy getting ready to go to the conference, and so the person who said she wasn't going to be able to comment anymore is the one that commented, Tony Driver.
Oh, bless her.
Yeah, Tony, she says, good day, my friends. Awesome study this week. It really stood out to me how we can search and understand so much, yet wisdom isn't something we can earn, it's revealed.
Yes.
I loved how it connects with Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. The fear of the Lord is wisdom, and tying it to Christ in 1 Corinthians 1:30. Rick, that was a mic drop moment.
Excellent.
Thank you. Yeah, I did the mic drop. Really grateful to be part of this journey with y'all. We're grateful that you're here with us as well. And I know that there's a lot of people that are still watching this. Even if you're not commenting, it's okay. We know you're there. We're still thinking
Yeah.
of you and praying for you. And I appreciate you being here with us this whole time.
Absolutely. And can I just say one thing?
You
The
sure
reason I
can.
don't I mean, I unless Rick reads them out to me, I don't know what you're saying. And I can't answer you back if I did know what you were saying. Well, if I did know what you were saying, I'll be able to comment. I have not got my Apple ID. I do not know how to access comments. I don't know how to do that
Yeah. And
because
so
I can't
whenever
remember
Elaine,
my Apple thing. So all I want to say to you out there is not as if Rick's doing all the answering and I'm just not giving a diddly squat. It's literally I don't know. I mean, that's why I put my email out there. I think you read it out, my email address. Maybe you could put it on the comments section because it would be lovely to hear what people are saying because I can't hear it unless you tell me, Rick.
I'll try to remember that. Let me write a note real quick to put that. Guys, I'll put Elaine.
I did get one from Laurie, and I did email Laurie back, but I don't know whether Laurie got my email because it didn't say anything about Laurie. It just says something about dairy farm or something, or dairy. I don't know what it was, but unless some sort of like random person in America has got an email that they're probably thinking, "Who's this from?" But I thought I was sending it back to Laurie. And Laurie, if you did receive it, great. But if you haven't, I did send one just
Yeah.
to say
So
thank you for the email.
yeah. So right now, guys, I wrote a note, hopefully I'll remember. If I don't, put in the comments like, "Yo, bro, you forgot the email." But if you guys want to contact Elaine directly, you can. When Elaine
And
is
that would be
here,
nice because I'm on my own here. That would be nice. I mean, you're very greedy over there. It goes from feast to famine. You have the feast and I have the famine. I'm sort of saying, please toss me a little piece of bread, and you're going, get back, get back. I've got a banquet.
listen, I have seven kids and all my friends over here. You're gonna have to wait a minute. How mean is that? Goodness gracious.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, oh my gosh, I wish I was there to be able to sort of share the whole thing. But it is what it is. And I just wanted to put out there that I love you all. It's not that I don't want to comment. It's just I A, don't know the comments, and B, can't comment because I don't know my Apple ID number to get in.
When you're here in America, I'm going to help you figure that out. I
Oh,
will help you get
please.
that. We will. We'll get it figured out. So, okay. And that's going to be in August, guys. Elaine's coming to America in August. She's staying here for a few weeks and she's going to go to the Arkansas Eschatology Conference. So if you guys go there, you get to meet her there.
That'd be
Also,
lovely.
we're going to run down and visit Reformed, Rogers Park Reformed Church with Alan Thompson and Dina and
Oh,
Tony
I'm
and Cameron
excited.
Driver and
I'm
all them.
excited. Exactly. I'm excited for everything. I mean,
And
my
Lori
daughter's birthday is,
Stone, I think she wants to meet you while you're here
oh,
too. And we're going to try to make this happen.
this is the thing. It's connecting with your brothers and sisters, and that to me is amazing. When I went over there last year, I had such an amazing time with people, and I just want to replicate it again. I want it to be the same, Lord. So please let it happen.
Yes, please, Lord. All right, let's get into this. So, like I said, we're going to get into Job 29, 30, and 31. And here's what's important. In my second talk at Berean was on the widow's mites. And what I drew out from that, so a lot of you guys that are here that are on Patreon were actually at the conference. So you'll probably remember that I was bringing out that God was the voice of the fatherless, the widow, and the sojourner. He was the defender. He called himself the father of the fatherless, right? The defender of widows. What you're going to find out, this is deeply embedded in God's law. It's in the Psalms, it's in the prophets, the way that widows and orphans and sojourners are treated is incredibly important to God. It is the what I call the litmus test for righteousness in a society. And if you fail in that, then you're going away from God. If you do what God says in regard to these people, these helpless ones, you're reflecting the heart of God. This is going to come up in these chapters. Job's going to talk about this. He's already been accused of abusing them. We know that that's not true, but Job's going to talk about it. Were you about to say something, Elaine?
Yeah, I was, and I was just thinking, the fatherless boy and the widow. I was thinking also that my mind went to the spiritual aspect of it, the fatherless boy, and I was thinking about when he divorced Israel and sent them away. He gave a bill of divorce and sent them away, and it
Mm-hmm.
was like a child being fatherless,
Mm-hmm.
didn't have a father anymore. They were rejected, they were sent away, and that was a 10 tribe. And then I thought about the widow when sort of like Christ died on the cross, the old covenant arrangement as God being their husband had finished. And I just thought that in that sense, he's saying, remember when Paul meets them at Jerusalem, they
Mm-hmm.
said, remember the widow and the fatherless boy. And he
Yeah.
said, yes, that's exactly what I was going to do. And I'm wondering whether that was some sort of code for remember Israel.
I think it's both. And I'll say this because in Isaiah makes it pretty point blank. He says, God tells Israel, if you reject the widow and the orphan and the sojourner, I will kill, he says, I will kill you with the sword,
Mhm.
and you will have children that are fatherless, and you will have wives who are widows. So he's warning Israel. So I agree, like, yes, later on when you think about a code for Israel, definitely I think that's in it. But also, and it, by the way, I was pointing out that this still stands in our society today. We still need to care for the widows and the orphans and the sojourner. I mean, like, this is, it never, God never changes that. That
No, he
stays the
doesn't.
same.
But again, I'm sort of looking at the spiritual aspect. Here we've got Job sort of reaching into the spirit here. And I'm just
Hmm.
thinking again, is this something, is this the hidden sort of message that Job is sort of like living through, is expounding, there's a lot of references that we could sort of say that are linked to Christ. So I'm just wondering again whether, he talks about the widow and the fatherless, and just the fact that, yeah, it's remember who they are, because we know that in 29 he's remembering, he's
That's right.
reminiscing, he's going back over it. So again, there's many sort of pointers to the fact that, yes, even Paul said, I wish that I could become a curse for my own people in the flesh, you know.
Hmm.
So again, I'm just thinking that we know that again that God brought back, joined the sticks. He took the tribe of Judah and he made them one stick again.
That's right.
So I'm just, you talk in Jeremiah, and then you can go to Hosea. I won't abandon you forever, and I will speak to you, with consoling words and words of, of love. It just, as much as these people were rejected, we as a nation, we know that individually they were loved.
Yes, they were. And yeah, I'm sure that you've picked up on the deep spiritual meaning of it too. Yes, absolutely. I think it's there 100%. Would you mind reading Job 29? So what she just said is that Job's going to go to remembrance. So keep in mind, 28, he's talked about wisdom, how it can't be mined, it can't be bought, it can only be revealed. And so that comes from God,
And
that the
it's probably
fear
in
of the Lord.
suffering.
That's right, in suffering, and the fear of the Lord is wisdom. That's the important thing. So now let's listen to what Job says in Job chapter 29.
Right, he says, I wish I wish I were as in the old days, back in the times when God watched over me, when his lamp shone over my head, and I walked through the day by its light, as I was when I was young, and God's counsel graced my tent. Then Shaddai was still with me. My children were around me. My steps were awash in butter, and the rocks poured out for me streams of olive oil. I would go out into the city gate and set up my seat in the open space. When young men saw me, they would hide themselves, while the aged arose and stood. Leaders refrained from speaking. They would lay their hands on their mouths. The voices of nobles were silenced. Their tongues stuck to their palate. Any ear that heard me blessed me. An eye that saw me gave witness to me. For I delivered the poor when they cried for assistance, the orphan too, who had no one to help him. Those who had been about to die would bless me, and I made widows sing in their hearts for joy. I clothed myself with righteousness, and it clothed itself with me. My justice was like a robe and a crown. I was eyes for the blind, and I was feet for the lame. I was a father to the needy, and I investigated the problems of those I didn't know. I broke the jaw of the unrighteous and snatched the prey from his teeth. I said, I will die with my nest, and I will live as long as a phoenix. My root will spread till it reaches water, and dew will stay all night on my branch. My glory will always be fresh, my bow always new in my hand. People would listen to me. They waited and were silent when I gave advice. After I spoke, they didn't talk back. My words were like drops of dew on them. They waited for me as for rain, as for the spring rain, with their mouths open wide. When I joked with them, they couldn't believe it, and they never darkened the light on my face. I chose their way for them, sitting as chief. I lived like a king in the army, like one who comforts mourners.
Mm.
That's amazing. I mean, to be able to write all that, that is so poetic in such depth, isn't it?
It is, and he's really driving home. First of all, we know the Bible makes it clear Job was a righteous man. The Bible says it unequivocally. It does not ever say otherwise. The New Testament mentions him. He's mentioned elsewhere in the scriptures about being righteous. Okay, so when he's describing like he took care of the widow and the orphan and the stranger, and that whenever he spoke, people were listening to him. That whenever he joked, they were surprised at it. That the widows would sing for joy because of him, and that he lived like a chief. I think what he's trying to tell you is that in his because he was the greatest man in all the East, that what he thought was that because of his actions and because of his life, like he the you know, like the lamp of the eye, how like everything that's like it's light, like when he has light coming in, it's not darkness. He has this inward man understanding of God. And he thought that his relationship with God was rock solid, and that as he followed what you would consider the laws of God, which is exactly what he's doing, that he would be blessed and not cursed. But that's not the situation he's in. And that's where the tension lies. That's why he's looking back saying, I was respected. I had everything, all of the people that were suffering, I took care of it. And by the way, when the wicked would come in, I would break the jaw and take the prey out of their mouth. Like I was the defender of the weak. And I'm all those things that God has expected of me. That's what I believe I am. But yet here I am. And now when I used to speak and people would be quiet and just listen and not respond, I'm sitting in the midst of these men where I spoke, and all they're doing is responding and mocking me. So that's what Job 29 is about. It's the remembrance of who the man was. And
And I
he,
think that,
go ahead.
no, I was just thinking about all that you said there. So much of it is external, isn't it?
Yes.
We're gonna get into the thoughts of Job's thoughts,
Mhm.
How he's beginning to be shaped. He's remembering what he was, but they're all external things. There, I sat at the gate. People listened to me. I did this for them. I did that for them. This is the joy that they got when I did this. This is, and it's all sort of, it's what I did for them, what I did for them. And now he's in the situation, like you say, where he's having to look now, not at what he did for them, as to of why he's in this situation after doing all those things for
Mhm.
them. It,
That's right.
it's a dichotomy, isn't it?
It
He can't
is.
grasp it. He's given us all these things that he's remembered back in the times when God watched over me. Well, he watched over me. He looked at me. He saw what I was doing. I did this and I did that and I did the other. It was all I.
Yeah, it's almost
You
like
know,
saying like when
we're not
God
saying it's wrong. We're not saying
no,
it's wrong because we're supposed to
no.
be these things.
However, it's like when he said when God guided me in his light, right? Like when God guided me. So he right now he's sitting in what he feels is chaos and darkness, and he's like, I remember whenever I was doing all of the things that I believe God wanted me to do, and that God was showing me these things and working with me. But now what? So trying to break down every single verse here is not necessary. If you guys want to go back and do it, go back and look at everything that Job did. I can tell you that he's following the law of God is what he's doing,
Yeah.
and he's
Whatever
following
that
it
law
to a
was at
T.
that particular time,
There was no law other than the
whatever he
oral.
perceived it to be,
Whatever it was, because
whatever he
we know
perceived
that
it
the
to
law had
be.
not been released yet. And so this is something oral that was transmitted from person to person in the priesthood, most likely. I don't know if it's after the order of Melchizedek. I don't know, guys. It doesn't really say, but we do know that he operated as a priest. He was over his family. He was the greatest in the East, and that he was a righteous man. This is what we know. So there's something more. This wisdom that's being revealed from heaven is something that he's grasping for. And so he's looking back at his life and he's seeing how he was an honorable, righteous man. Now, if you would, Elaine, let's go into chapter 30 and now watch where he says, this is where I'm at right now.
Yeah. He says, but now those younger than I hold me in derision. Men whose fathers I wouldn't even put in with the dogs that guard my sheep. What use to me was the strength in their hands? All their vigor had left them, worn out by want and hunger. They gnaw the dry ground in the gloom of waste and desolation. They pluck saltwort and bitter leaves. These, with broom tree roots, are their food. They are driven away from society, with men shouting after them as after a thief, to live in gullies and wadis, in holes in the ground and caves in the rocks. Among the bushes they howl like beasts and huddle among the nettles, irresponsible nobodies driven from the land. Now I have become their song. Yes, I am a byword with them. They loathe me and stand aloof from me. They don't hesitate to spit in my face. For God has loosened my bowstring and humbled me. They throw off restraint in my presence. At my right, the street urchins attack, pushing me from place to place, besieging me with their ways of destruction, breaking up my path, furthering my calamity. Even those who have no one to help them, they move in as though a wide gap. Amid the ruin, they roll in on waves. Terrors tumble over me, chasing my honor away like the wind of my hope of salvation, and it passes like a cloud. So now my life is ebbing away. Days of grief has seized me. At night, pain pierces me to the bone so that I never rest. My clothes are disfigured by the force of my disease. They choke me like the collar of my coat. God has thrown me into the mud. I have become like dust and ashes. I call out to you, God, but you don't answer me. I stand up to plead, but you just look at me. You have turned cruelly against me. With your powerful hand, you keep persecuting me. You snatch me up on the wind and make me ride it. You toss me about in the tempest, for I know that you will bring me to death, the house assigned to everyone living. Surely God wouldn't strike at a ruin. If I'm one's calamity, one cried out to him for help. Didn't I weep for those who were in trouble? Didn't I grieve for the needy? Yet when I hoped for good, what came was bad. When I expected light, what came was darkness. My insides are in turmoil. They can't find rest. Days of misery confront me. I go about in sunless gloom. I rise in the assembly and cry for help. I become a brother to jackals and a companion of ostriches. My skin is black and falling off of me, and my bones are burning with heat. So my lyre is turned for mourning, my pipe to the voice of those who weep.
Mm. Man, can you hear it? So before what he's doing in 29, remember, wisdom comes from God. He's saying he knows it's being revealed from heaven. Where is it? And then when you get to 29, he's looking back at his life and he's remembering all of the things that were good, all of the things that he thought that he was doing that was correct, and how blessed that he was. And then in this one, now he starts saying some really hard things. Like, not only is he destroyed physically, we know this, not only is he destroyed emotionally, we know this, but physiologically, theologically, worldview, all of this in the ancient world is catastrophe. When you see a man go through this in the ancient world, it is evidence that God is against him. That's what the worldviews are. And we have that even in our modern time. We've talked about that numerous times in this study. So when Job describes these things that are deeply physical. For example, he says, "My bones are burning. I have sleeplessness. I'm in constant pain. I have physical disfigurement. I'm in exhaustion. I have a loss of identity. Even my garment disfigures me." Like whatever's happening with these boils or whatever's going on, like his garment is disfigured. Like he looks like a heap, a mess in the dust here. Have you ever really sat in that for a little while and thought about what that must really be like? Because I've been going through a lot. I have been, but nothing anywhere close to this. And to think that he's still not cursing God, what he's saying is it should be painfully obvious if anybody knows who I am. If I could pick you up and put you in my head and know what I really am. The only thing that I can say about myself is that the things that I hoped for didn't happen. And what I think about is that whenever Job said he offered sacrifices for his children, and perhaps the thoughts of their heart were against God, like that was a hope. He was that the early chapters were showing us this was a hope of his, is that he wanted to sacrifice on behalf of his children because he loved his children. He wanted to care for his children. But that's not what happened. All of his children were taken. So his hope didn't turn out the way that he thought it would. So the idea of blessing and hope and all of this stuff, even his own worldview was skewed. And now he's seeing that. But he's also looking at the total calamity of his life. And he's like, wait, like, guys, even the lowest of the low spit at me. These people that I wouldn't even let in my territories are now, they're over me. They look at me, they even sing songs and joke about me. This is, this is absolute devastation in the ancient world. He's ruined, guys. He's ruined. But, but he's, because we know all of this, we have chapter 1 and chapter 2 of this book. And because you hear him going through this, I don't know why. Well, maybe I do know why. Psalm 22 really hit me. I was like, oh, this is the suffering servant. Isaiah 53, Psalm 22. We brought this up many times. Remember whenever he says like God's not answering me? Remember how Jesus said, my God, why have you forsaken me? And he's quoting the Psalm while he's on the cross. Well, Elaine, the thing that I'm thinking about is that this is like a type of the suffering servant, and that the suffering servant that would come on behalf of God, when he comes, he's going to be rejected to the uttermost because he has to go to the depths that Adam put us in. He's got to get below it in order to redeem it. So this is a type of someone like Jesus. Guys, when you look at Jesus's life, yeah, he was stirring up the hornet's nest, but he was healing and he was helping the lame. And he, remember the widow who had nothing left? She had no more sons, and then he raises the widow's son to protect him. Like Jesus, anytime he's present, death does not occur. He resurrects it or stops it. So Jesus is that suffering servant. When you get to John and the high priestly prayer that he does in Gethsemane, you see him later on the cross when he's saying, "Father, forgive them." And his beard has been ripped. He's been mocked, spit upon. Now his hands and feet have been pierced. He's, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" And then to look even at the thief beside him, "Remember me when you come into your kingdom, and today you will be with me in paradise." Like this grace in the lowest of the lows. All of the people that he's been training for the last 3.5 years have scattered, except for his mother and Mary Magdalene and a couple of other disciples, whoever the disciple of Jesus loved was, John, Lazarus, whatever, John, whatever, I don't care. Whoever that was with him. Everybody else was gone.
I think you got to remember there, though, Rick. Again, this is like you say. You got to remember that, that it was Passover, and they were required by law to go to the temple and offer up a lamb. So you could turn around and say, well, actually, they were following the law, which is why they weren't at the cross.
Who is they?
Well, all the other disciples, the
No,
apostles.
I disagree. They're not there because they're afraid. They're running from him. They know who Jesus is. They're not following the law. They're scared. They're running from the people who are doing the law to them. That's what I think. But you think otherwise?
Well, no, all I know is that they were required by law. It's a known thing that they were required by law. So therefore, if they had seen Christ going to the cross, they may have, which they did. They believe, well, that was it. Like they're on the road to Emmaus. Well, are you the only one in Jerusalem hasn't heard what's gone on these last few days? You not get it. They're downcast. They think, well, this one that we thought was going to do it has done it. So I think a lot of it would have been thinking, well, look, do we go to the cross and stay there, or do we because we think he's dying? They didn't really understand what was going on at that particular moment. Or shall we go to Jerusalem like God has always told us to do every year? We're supposed to turn up and do that and take our lambs. Are we going to prepare for the Passover? So and yet,
But they already had. They already had. Jesus had already prepared the Passover. They'd already went through this with him. And so at this point,
when you say the Passover, what do you mean? They ate the Passover meal?
whenever they prepared the Passover meal and they ate it prior.
Yeah, but they didn't eat the They didn't actually eat the Passover lamb the night that they had a meal with the Lord.
No, but that's because he had just brought in the new covenant. They were understanding that he was bringing in the new covenant. They didn't know that he was going to be dead less than 12 hours later, or on the cross 12 hours later. They didn't know that, but they knew. So whenever he was arrested, it says that they fled because they were afraid. Peter and John, or Peter and the disciple whom Jesus loved, went in and stayed close nearby during his trials. And then eventually Peter would leave and weep bitterly because these little girls were noticing that he was the disciple. So to me, it's like, I don't even know if they're even remembering their Jewishness as much as they are just running for their lives at this point, and realizing that maybe they had a hope that was, extinguished. But regardless, Jesus, when I say that Jesus is a type of Job, all I'm saying is that Job is showing us this extreme suffering where he feels like nobody's answering. And Jesus, by saying, my God, why have you forsaken me? Let's remember, this is the Holy Son of God, incarnate in flesh, dying on a cross, saying these words out loud. Some people say, well, yeah, he was just, quoting a psalm. Guys, I don't care if he's just quoting a psalm. He's quoting it. Look at the context of the psalm and understand it's him. He's the suffering servant that's actually going through it. So all of those things that he thought and felt as a human was, God, why have you forgotten? Why have you forsaken me? Why have you left me and abandoned me? But
I grasp all of that, Rick. I'm not saying that that's not true at all. Every single word that you're saying there is 100%. I'm not saying that at all. That is why I haven't interjected, because I can't see a fault. But when you said about they weren't at the cross, I just had to interject there to say, well, they didn't know what was really going on. Yes, he had already denied him. Maybe he just thought, well, I thought he was, but I don't think that they really understood anything. Yes, their fear might have crept in. Maybe they went down to the Passover with their lambs simply because they wanted to be seen to be being faithful, sort of loyal servants of God and the law. Again,
but you and I both know, and I'm not just trying to be against you. I'm just saying, like many times when I try to speculate in Genesis, that if it's not there, it's not there. I can't speculate that. All I can tell you is that they were running away. That's what the Bible says. Maybe they did. Maybe some of them did go and try to go with the Passover. I don't know. But I definitely know that they weren't at the cross with Jesus. He was abandoned.
Well, all I know is that was a law that 3 times all males had to. The other 4, no, but all had to turn up on 3 particular Passovers, 3 particular feasts. One was the Passover, one was Pentecost, and one was Tabernacles. So again, and these play a huge part in the redemption story. The Passover, the pouring out the Spirit of Pentecost, which they were all supposed to go to, which I think again is spiritual, and Tabernacles, which is the last feast before all of them come to a close. So, for me to tie it in spiritually, that's where the route I would go down. I know it doesn't say specifically, but I do know the law was required of them to turn up there, irrespective. If they missed the Passover, God was gracious and said, well, if you miss it through like an illness or whatever, that he said you could do it exactly the same date a month later. So that was what he said. So for me, I was only bringing that up because I was trying to defend them. Sometimes, they just scattered, they didn't bother about him and blah, blah, blah. But I'd like to think that, in their confusion of him dying on the cross and not really understand, the same as Job, he doesn't understand why what's happening. Both the comforters don't understand what's happening. They don't get it. Right. So I'm just thinking that maybe they didn't get it, and they returned to that which they knew, which was, I need to be at the Passover and offer up the Passover lamb and remember the Exodus from Egypt, which
and they did observe the Sabbath. Obviously, they did, because the Sabbath day you don't hear the disciples doing anything until Resurrection Day. You just the only people that are working behind the scenes are people like Nicodemus, or Joseph of Arimathea, that's going to Pilate trying to get his body off, and then
they had to get it off the cross simply because you do not have a body on the Sabbath.
That's right.
So it wasn't the Saturday Sabbath either.
Right. It was a high Sabbath.
That's exactly correct. So he was probably resurrected on Saturday night at 6:00, just after that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's for sure. All right, so I want to wrap up Job 30 by saying it kind of like this. Whenever he says, I cry to you for help and you do not answer me, I stand and you only look at me. This is really interesting because when I was talking about Christ on the cross, it's kind of the same thing. If you put yourself on the cross with Christ and you think about the situation that you're in, you ask him the night before to take this cup from him. Now you know that he's not taking the cup away. So that means that you're going to go the full direction. I almost said full Monty, but that's what I meant. The total, you're going to the total depth that he's taking you in. The nth degree. Thank you. And that's what Job is doing as well. That's what he's saying you don't. And it's like, it's in modern English, it's like, I keep talking to you and all I get back is silence. And that's really pretty much what's happening. All he's hearing is the accuser talking to him constantly, right?
Yeah. Again, we're sort of like we're setting off 29 to 30, and what I see in that is what he did, what he achieved. It's almost as if he brought stability, as if he brought sort of peace, as if he brought calm, as if he brought understanding, as if he brought sort of like some sort of clarity to people that wanted answers. But then, because of the situation he's in, now he's saying, basically, a bunch of idiots are in charge and it's all gone to pot.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
So, and yet here I am in this condition after remembering and reminiscing in 29 about what I did. And yet you've left a bunch of like people that just, young men that are doing this and older people that are doing that and people spitting in my face and blah, blah, blah. Look at the state of me. And yet it's going to rack and ruin. And why? Why? When I look back and see the peace and the calm and the tranquility that I brought to these people because of loving God. And yet now you've taken that and you've reduced it to rubble because everyone around him was like wild plants again. They were just growing off in all different directions. It was like, again, what did he say there? It says, among the bushes, they howl like beasts.
Yes.
Wild beasts. Well, what do we know about wild beasts? What do they represent? People that have got no discernment of the law or understanding of God. And he says, and they huddle amongst the nettles. Well, nettles are prickly, horrible things that you don't even want to dare huddle within. And yet they are. And this is what he's saying, that, everything that they're out there teaching, bringing about, what they're now expounding is bringing rack and ruin. And yet I'm sitting here in rack and ruin and brought all the other things that I was remembering. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
And this is what I'm gleaning from the whole thing. When I contrast 29 to 30, this is what I wouldn't necessarily be thinking about the pain I was in per se. I'd be thinking about, hang on a minute. On one hand, that was what it was like. And on the other hand, now these young bucks and young people and all these others that really don't listen to any counsel anymore because they're getting it from idiots, this is the state of the play. And this man that you used to bring all this about has now got this situation to deal with. And he's just perplexed. I mean, he's just absolutely, this is why he's saying, why?
I know. And I think that's the secret, if there is one, to this book, is that the only way that you're going to get to the wisdom
It's revelation, Rick,
is through 28. It's revelation. The only way you're going to get to it is by going through
experiencing it,
understanding 29, saying 30, which is what Jesus, look, Job and Jesus are almost identical right now in this regard. Why have you forsaken me? I feel like you've turned cruel. The bulls of Bashan are around me. They're tearing me.
Casting lots for my cloak.
I feel abandoned. I feel like you're being silent. These are my human feelings. Yet I know that you're there. Why are you being silent? Why? Asking that question sometimes bothers people, but this is exactly what Job is asking.
Exactly, but again, like Jesus, he knows really what's going on. I mean, that's the difference with Christ is even though he's in extreme pain and he's going through what he like I've said before, that Christ, when he was on the cross, he preached to those that were at the foot of the cross because he said, my God, why have you forsaken me? Now that takes you back to Psalm 22, the opening verses of Psalm 22, and all the things that he had he couldn't maneuver all these things. It talks about him being given something to drink. It talks about them casting lots. So even on the cross, he is witnessing to the fact that I'm the Messiah. And because they didn't have a Bible like us, we got a Bible, we carry it about with us, and we open it up to chapters and verses, but they knew it off by heart. By the fact of him saying, my God, why have you deserted me? Bang, Psalm 22, oh my gosh, what's happened? They've given him a drink. They've cast lots over his cloak. Is he really this one? Again, this is the whole thing. Christ is preaching from the cross, which makes it so amazing for me that he understands what's going on. Even in the moment of his extreme pain and agony, he's thinking of mankind, those standing at the foot of the cross that would have understood the scriptures and said, listen, boys, I'm telling you, go back to Psalm 22. Look at what's happened here. And you're going to see I had no control over this. I am the Messiah.
Right. And just like Job, who's in his darkness, knows that God still sees him. He just feels like he's being silent. The Psalm 22 suffering says, yet God did not turn his face from me. So there's this understanding that where humans can't reach, when the righteous suffering servant goes to the lowest of the low and no other human can reach down, God is there. So this is what's the most amazing part about this, is that the accuser is being used by God to bring about what's coming in Job's life and what's coming after. God is doing things on so many different levels that we can't even perceive it. Humans can't perceive it. But a man who goes through it is going to understand this. This is how God works. And that's why I believe this is how you become a high priest. This is what's going on. How you have that direct communication with God and are able to mediate his covenant with other people because you have that understanding. This is how Job got there. Job's remembering what he was, but that understanding of God, he did not possess. He has to go through and understand the 30 because now he's like, no, this is where I'm at. So where's wisdom? That's what I was. This is where I'm at. So now let's get into the final things that he says. Let's go into chapter 31 and see where he closes, because next week we're going to get into Elihu. And that is one of the biggest enigmas to me. We're really going to dig in deep on Elihu because sometimes I don't quite understand what's going on there. It doesn't make sense, but I've started to draw out some pretty cool stuff. So if you would, Elaine, chapter 31.
Of course, this is a long old chapter.
Guys, get ready.
If I get it wrong.
That's a lot. It's a lot. I know we've read a lot today, but this is how we're going to close out Job's discourse.
I made a covenant with my eyes not to let them lust after any girl. What share does God give from above? What is the heritage from Shaddai on high? Isn't it calamity to the unrighteousness, disaster to those who do evil? Doesn't he see my ways and count all my steps? If I have gone along with falsehood, if my feet have hurried to deceit, then let me be weighed in an honest scale so that God will know my integrity. If my steps have wandered from the way, if my heart has followed my eyes, if the least dirt has stuck to my hands, then let me sow and someone else eat. Let what grows from my fields be uprooted. If my heart has been enticed toward a woman, and I have lain in wait at my neighbor's door, then let my wife grind for another man, and let others kneel on her. For that would be a heinous act, a criminal offense, a fire that would burn in the depths of Abaddon, uprooting all I produce. If I ever rejected my slave or slave girl's cause, when they brought legal action against me, then what would I do if God stood up? Where were he to intervene, what answer could I give? Didn't he who made me in the womb make them too? Didn't the same one shape us both from our birth? If I held back anything needed by the poor, or made a widow's eye grow dim with tears, or ate my portion of food by myself, without letting the orphan eat any of it? No, from my youth he grew up with me as if with a father, and I have been her guide from my mother's womb. Or if I saw a traveler needing clothing, someone in need who had no covering, who didn't bless me from his heart, from being warmed with the fleece from my sheep, or if I lifted up my hand against an orphan, knowing that no one would dare charge me in court, then let my arm fall from its socket, and let my forearm be broken at the elbow. For calamity from God has always terrified me, because his majesty, I could never do a thing like that. If I made gold my hope, if I said to find gold, you are my security, if I took joy in my great wealth, in my having acquired much, or if, on seeing the shining sun or the full moon as it moved through the sky, my heart was secretly seduced, so that I would wave them a kiss with my hand, then this too would be a criminal offense, for I would have been lying to God on high. Did I rejoice at the destruction of him who hated me? Was I filled with glee when disaster overtook him? No, I did not allow my mouth to sin by asking for his life with a curse. Was there anyone in my tent who didn't say, no one can find a single person whom he has not filled with his meat? No stranger had to sleep in the street. I kept my house open to the traveler. If I concealed my sins, as most people do, by hiding my wrongdoing in my heart, from fear of general gossip or dread of some family's contempt, keeping silent and not going outdoors, I wish I had someone who would listen to me. Here is my signature. Let Shaddai answer me. I wish I had the indictment my adversary has written. I would carry it on my shoulder. I would bind it on me like a crown. I would declare to him every one of my steps. I would approach him like a prince. And if my land cried out against me, if its furrows wept together, if I ate its produce without paying or made its owners despair, then let thistles grow instead of wheat and noxious weeds instead of barley. The words of Job are finished.
Mm. Well, we finally made it there. So, Elaine, I wanted to
Well,
ask you a
sorry about
question.
that. That was
No, it
long.
was great. No, it was actually great. You really captured it emotionally for me. I was listening. You really got it. But so you remember how you said that in chapter 30 it was a lot of external. Did you notice how he moved to the internal in this?
Yes.
So now what he's done is he's saying, I did all of the things. Now he tells you why. And when he's on the inside of himself, he's saying, if I had done this, or if this, if that. In other words, I said it earlier, the light of the body, like Jesus said that the eye is the lamp of the body. And if darkness comes in, how great is that darkness? He's saying that the inner man, within the inner man, whatever's going on inside is what produces. It's not what goes into the man, it's what comes out of the man that defiles the man, Jesus would say. So in other words, it's the leaven. It's what you are on the inside, the teaching that you have and understand operates from the outside. Job is saying, if I had done this, then show me. If I had done this, then yes, bring it against me. And what I love about what he says here is he goes, bring the accuser and bring that indictment to me and I'll wear it on my shoulder. Like, okay, this is what I know about me. This is what I know about what I did. So this wisdom, when I'm saying where is it? How am I going to get to this? Because he needs that. Job needs that wisdom to reveal itself right now because he can't put this together. The ancient world doesn't have the context for it. It doesn't know what to do with it. This is why the law is important. This is why Moses is important. This is why David is important. This is why Solomon is important. All of the writers and the prophets are important. They do not have the context in the ancient world to define God and how he works within the world. And so Job, who was a priest of his family, has been put through this, and now he's calling on that wisdom. He recognizes that there's an accuser that's gone before God. He does not know chapter 1 and chapter 2, but he's got it. Now he knows there is something beyond here that's at work. Now, let me see that accuser. Let me have that indictment. I'll wear it on my shoulder. I'm going to sign my name and I'm going to say, the things that I've done, I am righteous. Now, you might think that's false righteousness. That's not how Job's approaching it. You just learned in 31 the kind of inner man that he is. That's not what's really going on. Now, he's getting ready to get it from Elihu, and God's going to put him in his place. But we have to get there first. So this is where Job is. And I
I
love
think
how it closes it. Go ahead, Elaine.
no, I'm just thinking about, that the whole thing really, that again, he goes down even to the personal, that, if I have done something in secret when nobody else would know, I didn't have to tell them. He's very aware that God sees all these things. He's done an awful lot externally, like we've gone through chapter 29, and he's reminiscing about all that he did. He's gone through 30, where he's talking about sort of now you've got a bunch of losers in control, and I that's what he's saying basically in chapter 30.
Right.
But now he's sort of like he's internalizing stuff, and he's starting to say, well, hang on a minute, if I've done this and I've done that, and he's starting, like you said, to wake up. This is that for me, that 29, 30, and 31 are the pivotal chapters of this book.
Yes.
This is
So
now,
critical.
they are. They are very critical. And I think you can take this to anybody. You can look in your own life and you can say sometimes, which we all have done, Lord, why have you brought this upon me? What have I done? I've done this and I've done that and I've done whatever you wanted to do and I've blah, 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 blah. And, it's only because we now have the understanding that, that when God takes you through a trial or a tribulation, it's going to, at the end of it, yield peaceable fruits, namely
Right.
righteousness. We understand that. We've got the whole Bible, even though some people really still don't understand it at times. I think even all of us have said, why? Why? Why has this come upon me? Sometimes I suffer with sort of like being in low places. And I just want to wrap myself up and curl in a ball and just cry to myself and just say, what is it? And then, you slap yourself around the head and say, it's nothing that's happened. It's just state of mind. You've got to really start thinking about it and be honest with yourself. And I think this is what Job is starting to do. And in this honesty, you get not only what he's done and what situation he's in, you're getting now the humility. You're starting to see that what he did was really good, but maybe there could have been some sort of understanding of the humility of it. That maybe, you didn't know the root of all the things that you are doing or were doing. And again, I think it's like Christ says, when you have got bear much fruit, what does he come and do? He comes and chops it all down. You think, well, hang on a minute, I was full of fruit here. I was so heavy with fruit, and you've come and chopped me down, and you feel naked again. You feel like you haven't got. But God does that to those he really is taking forward and are producing a lot of fruit. And this is what he's doing to Job. He sees this righteous man. Satan sees this righteous man. He's heavily laden with fruit. God says, right, you are ripe for a pruning here. But it's through that pruning that he starts to gain more and more understanding, more and more wisdom. He's seeing himself, and there's more fruit going to be produced on this tree. He's going to come out a totally different man from which he went sick. And that's the whole thing. Not only does the tree produce more fruit, but it grows bigger and wider and stronger. And this is what God is doing to all of his children that he loves. He's pruning us back, and seeing it through the eyes of Job. He's got this pivotal moment. He's going to come into an awareness that he never had before. And it's wonderful to see. And it's like all of us, when we're pruned back by the situations that we go through, it's God moving us forward, not saying we've done something wrong. It's saying, now, darlings, I'm going to add to you because this is your time for me to move you on.
Yes. Yeah, that's great, Elaine. So this is how we'll wrap up today's study because we just went through a lot of chapters. There was no sense in me going down through verse by verse and breaking it down for you. You can read it and listen to him and hear exactly what he's saying. I don't need to define any of that for you. We've done enough in this study to understand ancient. As a matter of fact, I would venture to say you've listened to Elaine read enough to where when you hear her say it, you pretty much know where she's at, and that's what I love about it and this book. So we've immersed ourselves into this now. Here we are. Job has finished his discourse. He said, I will sign that indictment. I will look at this. I want to stand before God. Let me see that accuser. Give that thing to me and I'll put it on my shoulder. I am righteous in my own eyes. I cannot find it. It's going to have to be God that's going to show it. That
And
28,
that's what
that
he's,
chapter
this is,
28 wisdom has got to come
yeah.
from him. That's where it's got to come from. It's not coming from you guys. It's not coming from me. But that's why this next chapter, chapter 32, is so awesome. And I'm going to give you
Yeah.
a key. Didn't mean to interrupt you, Elaine. Did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I was just thinking that, again, this all that Job has said, his righteousness is towards himself and not
In
towards
his
God.
own eyes. In his own eyes.
It's
Yes,
not
very
towards
good.
God. Yeah.
That's exactly right. So let me read just a couple of verses. And guys, if you would, go ahead and read the entire Elihu discourse. It's several chapters, but if you're willing to go along with us, that's what I'm going to do this next week. I'm not going to go through every chapter. I can't go through all of it, but we'll probably split up Elihu into two or three parts. But listen to these first few verses and then just let that ruminate because now you're going to know the position that Elihu has. It says, so let me read the last verse that it says in the last verse of 31, the words of Job are ended. So these three men cease to answer Job. So let's not let the chapter break that thought because he was righteous in his own eyes. Then Elihu the son of Barachel the Buzite of the family of Ram burned with anger. He burned with anger at Job because he justified himself rather than God.
That's
That's
right.
critical. That's
Yeah.
critical. And here, verse 3, he burned with anger also at Job's three friends because they had found no answer, although they had declared Job to be in the wrong. Now, watch his character. Now, Elihu had waited to speak to Job because they were older than he.
Mm-hmm.
And when he
Respect.
saw, and when Elihu saw that there was no answer in the mouth of these three men, he burned with anger. So we'll stop there. So now because he was righteous in his own eyes, Job said he was righteous in his eyes. Elihu was angry at Job because he justified himself rather than justify God. That is a true statement. Yes,
That's
Job is righteous. He is. But the statement is that he justified himself rather than justify God in his argument.
yeah.
Elihu
Yeah.
recognizes that. But then Elihu also looks at the three friends and said, you guys are older and wiser than me, and none of you called him out for this. Like,
Yeah.
this is ridiculous. And so
Yeah.
he's burned in anger at all four of these men sitting here. And so
Mm.
now he's going to talk about how to justify God. That is what we're getting into. Get
That's
ready.
beautiful. That's beautiful. And it's the younger one as well.
It's the young buck.
Mm.
It's the
And
young
this is
buck.
this is what I'm saying. It's a bit like, like I say about the old cover. It's never the first, it's always the second. So you've got all these ones speaking, all these ones that are given words of wisdom. And then you get this young one that seems to have the most wisdom and displays it towards the others. And
Mhm.
it's a bit like sort of, the old covenant with the religious leaders. They should have had all the answers. They knew all that, they had everything. And yet here is the young Christians that weren't intellectual. They didn't know anything. They weren't taught by Gamaliel or anyone like that sit at their feet. And yet here they are coming up with answers. They're coming up with truth. They're
Yeah.
pointing towards God as the one that only should have given what is righteous, the standard of what righteousness is. You cannot be made righteous in your own eyes yourself.
Right. You know what this reminds me of, Elihu? You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when Joseph and Mary took Jesus to Jerusalem as a 12-year-old boy, and how he stood at the temple steps, and his parents had left the city, but he stayed back behind at the temple steps and started arguing, kind of like Job at the gate with all the people, or Elihu at the gate with the young men. Like Job or Jesus is there at the temple, and he astonished all of the lawyers. They didn't know what to do with this young man because he understood more than they ever did. He was the word incarnate. Let's just be honest.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
that the young sometimes will outspeak the older. That happens for
But
sure.
again, about the second, like again, it says there it won't be Ishmael, it'll be Isaac.
Hmm.
It's not the old covenant, it's the new covenant. It's not the first Adam, it's the last Adam. It's
Hmm.
always the second that comes up with that which God wants to use. And I think
Hmm.
there's definitely a spiritual application there, which again, that's a story for another time. But yeah,
Well,
there
and
is. And I
this is gonna be funny. This is gonna be really funny, but I'm gonna take us all the way back to the beginning of this conversation about my daughter Annabelle's wedding because this is the wisdom in it, okay? Here's the wisdom in this. Whenever I was a young man, I would have been more worried about how everybody outside of me was perceiving what was going on with our wedding. That was the kind of person that I was, very superficial. I would say, "Oh no, it's not perfect. And this is terrible. And what would these people think of us?" And I put a lot of stock in that. But yet, I watched my daughter and her new husband only care about the love and the
all
relationship that
right.
they have and making everybody
Yeah,
else around them be happy.
that's
That's what
right.
they were just happy in love, and they didn't care about the rain, they didn't care about
No,
the
no,
temperature, and that
no.
to me was just pure joy. I was like,
Yes.
I am so glad that my daughter has found that. That
Exactly.
means
And
so
this is
much to
again,
me.
this is the whole thing, isn't it? It shifted from what you said when you were younger. It was all external. What would
Yep.
people think? What were they seeing?
Hmm.
What would they look? Well, how would they judge me? But now, as you're older and wiser, what's going on inside you has much more depth of weight and riches than anything
Yes.
external could possibly give you.
Yeah.
The
Whenever
joy
they
you must
said,
have felt was overwhelming. You must have felt like the richest man in the room,
yeah, and I really would love,
apart from her husband, of course.
I'm going to ask my daughter if I can read their vows. Guys, I mean, they wrote their own vows, and I was absolutely shocked about how incredible they were. I mean,
And
these two
do you
kids
know what,
are
Rick?
crazy about each other.
I pray that that sort of that first bloom of youth of a marriage that it matures into something far deeper as the years
Yes.
go by.
Me too.
That's what my
Me
prayer is
too.
for them because it's so easy to feel
Ugh.
all those things
This
and
world will chew you up and spit you out, man.
then chew you
I
up
hope they
again.
hold on to each other and just stay together in that oneness and the
Well, what does
flesh that they have.
Ecclesiastes say? One on their own is difficult. Two, they can help each other stand, but a threefold cord cannot be
Not be
easily broken.
keep
If they
Christ in
have
the
God in
middle of
their
it,
marriage,
kids.
there's going to be a lot harder. The amount of people I'm hearing about that are splitting up with their husbands and wives lately is incredible. And I'd say 90% of them I've heard are Christians.
Yeah, well, guess what? That's what I'm a divorced and remarried Christian, and that's exactly what happened to me. I was very superficial. I had a lot to do with those divorce. I used to blame her for everything, but I can't anymore. God's shown me a lot about me and myself. So anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this study. Please leave us all of your comments, any questions, anything that you want to do. You know that we'll tackle them. Don't get mad at Elaine. She doesn't know her Apple ID, and it's going to have to be August when she gets here that we fix that
Oh,
for her.
no, just basically don't be mad at Elaine, Lou.
Just don't be mad at Elaine ever for any reason. Is that fair? Good stuff.
We always beat the dog.
We always be, yeah. All right, but we do both love you very much, and we're thankful for all of you that are here. And we'll just
God
see you
bless you
next week.
all. See
Read
you again
ahead.
next week.
Read Elihu, guys. Get into it because this is going to be awesome. We're about to wrap this study up, and
Or
it's only a
put your
few more
tanks on your
parts.
back because we're going deep.
We're going deep. That's right. All right. Well, God bless. We'll see you next time.
God bless you all. Love you all. Bye, darlings.
Mwah.